So I just watched Spider-Man No Way Home. And first of all, the first bit of this is going to be spoiler free. And then, I'll give the indication as to when I'm going to start talking about spoilers or whatever. And it will be made clear to you. Um, and the first thing I want to say is that going into this movie, all I really cared about was, is this going to be a good movie, right? Like, don't get me wrong, I was with the speculation right up until the point of the movie's release of like, is Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield gonna be in it? Is Charlie Cox gonna be in it as Matthew Murdock? Like, don't get me wrong, I'm not above that discourse, but at the end of the day, at least for me personally, like, I sat down in the theater and I was like, okay, all of that is in my mind, or all that is out of my mind. If they're in the movie, great. If they're not, that's fine. At the end of the day, all I really care about is this a good movie? And I am deeply saddened to report that this is a fantastic Spider-Man movie. And that's the thing that I want to get across here. Like, first and foremost, this is just a really good movie. And I would say that it is probably the best, no, it definitely is the best MCU Spider-Man movie. And I think it might be my favorite live action Spider-Man movie. And like I still think Into the Spider-Verse is better, but this is probably the best live action one. And the other thing I'll say is I honestly think that Marvel Studios have finally made a movie that I think has the potential of uniting the Spidey fandom. I don't know how terminally online you are, but I spend I spend a lot of time like seeing people argue about, the Raimi movies are better than the Tom Holland movies, and then you have like a few people like me being like, oh, but Mark Webb is really good too. um, uh, and obviously, like, I understand the complaints that the Raimi people have, and I understand why like the MCU Spider-Man fans like their movies, but I honestly do think that a lot of like the Raimi people, I think they're gonna identify with this movie, especially because one of the things that I was worried about the movie was, okay, we saw in the trailers, this isn't a spoiler. Obviously, a lot of the classic villains are coming into this movie, and one of my big worries about it was, okay, like, is this just going to be fan service? Are they just going to show up because them showing up is going to get fans interested, and they're not really going to serve the plot? And that's not the case at all. I think, for the most part, there are a couple of them that I think are just fan service, but for the most part, they utilize the villains really well, and the villains serve the story really well. And yeah, I mean, just honestly, I just think that John Watts improved here on just a lot of things. Like, one of my big complaints about the MCU Spider-Man movies are that, they're just not like visually all like impressive. Like, the action has never been especially good in my opinion. Just the cinematography is often very bland, and I do think that this is a big improvement. I think the action is generally really solid. There's some great stuff in here. I think just a lot of the scenes just have a lot more life and vibrancy, really, in the way that it's composed. So, I mean, yeah, on that front, I think it's a huge improvement. I think Tom Holland is really good in this movie. He gives it his all to his character. Like, whatever you think about this adaptation, I think Tom Holland has been consistently really good in the role, and he continues to be good. We see the side characters, which one of my personal complaints are that they don't, and the side characters are just very much off to the side, and they don't do really any interesting things with them. I think that they changed that with this movie. I think Aunt May is really good in this movie. I think Zendaya's MJ character is really good in this movie. Ned, I mean, he's in it quite a bit, and he's like, I enjoy the character, but I don't know. I wish they maybe could have found a way to do a little more with him, but that's a small complaint personally. And yeah, like, when I say that this is a really good Spider-Man movie, it is just a really good Spider-Man movie. I don't want to go too much into it, but just stuff that I personally like about the character of Spider-Man, I think this movie executes really well. Okay, so that is the spoiler free segment of this. Allow me to talk about spoilers. So if you haven't watched the movie, get out of here, leave, or stay. I don't care. It's not gonna affect me anymore. I already saw the movie. Okay. So as far as spoilers go, honestly, I just want to. I kind of just want to jump to the end because, like, the way this movie ends, it ends in such a way that it actually makes me appreciate the previous movies. Like, when you like a lot of people have complained about the fact that Uncle Ben isn't involved in this, or isn't involved in these trilogies, and this movie ends in such a way that like addresses that in a super meaningful way, because in a way, and obviously they haven't elaborated on this, but it really feels like this trilogy is Spider-Man's origin story. I don't I don't think they've confirmed whether or not Uncle Ben exists and this Peter Parker has had this traditional origin story, because Aunt May is Uncle Ben here. Like, she is the one who in her final moments teaches him this lesson about responsibility and empathy, and just gives him the values of Spider-Man. And the thing that really makes me think that maybe Uncle Ben just hasn't been around in this is that Aunt May's grave isn't next to Uncle Ben's grave. And this is the death that makes Tom Holland's Peter Parker grow up. And maybe this is really the moment that he becomes Spider-Man. At least that's how I read it, and I think that's what they're trying to convey here. And I think that this solution is, I hope, it'll please a lot of the people that have been complaining about, Peter Parker not having, not having Uncle Ben's influence around, because maybe this universe is Peter just didn't have an Uncle Ben. I mean, there is the thing where in Far From Home he has Ben's suitcase. I'm not too sure what's going on with that. Like, maybe in their efforts to please those people, they're just continuing to ignore Uncle Ben, and maybe that'll make them even more mad. Maybe, hopefully not, but maybe. Hopefully the sentiment will still be there. Yeah, I think we'll definitely find out in that Spider-Man freshman year like animated show. And I mean, yeah, like the way this movie ends, where a lot of us were speculating is MJ gonna die? She doesn't die, but because Peter realizes the responsibility that he holds in being Spider-Man, he makes the decision to leave her and let her live a normal life. And that is so powerful. And seeing Peter get his own apartment, and it's a shitty apartment, seeing him listening to the fucking like police radio, and jumping out of the window in his homemade suit, that was such a powerful scene, and feeling like he is now Spider-Man. I don't know. I thought that was so incredibly powerful. And yeah, that's why I just wanted to jump to the end, because it was really that ending sequence where I realized just, wow, they did a really nice job with this movie. But anyways, yeah, as far as all the spoilery stuff that everybody's been speculating, I mean, I think that all of the villains, Peter wanting to not just not kill them, but not even redeem them, but cure them. I thought that was like really powerful, and it was like just a really defining moment, I think, for this Spider-Man. And yeah, I thought they all played just really interesting parts in, Peter's evolution. And and obviously Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield. Yeah, I thought that they played a very similar role as Peter B. Parker did with Miles Morales in Into the Spider-Verse. My sister actually, she was like, that I kind of felt like I was watching Into the Spider-Verse, and she's right. This is very much almost like it almost felt like yeah, they basically took the plot of Into the Spider-Verse. I'm personally okay with that because it's really good, you know. Um, and of course, this has the added element of Peter not wanting to kill all the villains. And yeah, I mean, and yeah, obviously the Spider-Man playing the part of sort of mentoring and especially Toby like stopping Tom Holland from killing Green Goblin. I loved that. I thought they played a really good part. And listen, Andrew Garfield is my personal favorite Spider-Man. I think he is. I think he's just the best to have done it, and it's not just him. Obviously, it's obviously the material that he's worked with. But seeing him back in this movie made me so happy. Like I, man, he's still so good in that role. I desperately want like an Amazing Spider-Man 3. We're never gonna get it, but I desperately want that. I hope we at least see more of him at some point. Um, and okay, this is the first negative I'm gonna say. I I just don't think Tobey Maguire is that good in this role. I'm sorry. It's not even. I don't know if that he's not a very good actor, but I was watching him when I see Andrew Garfield as Spider-Man, I feel like I'm watching Spider-Man. When I see Tobey Maguire, I feel like I just see Tobey Maguire, and that's just me. I I I am very happy. I'm sure all the super duper Raimi fanboys are I'm sure they're all I hope they felt the same way that I felt. But that's just for me. I just don't think I don't think he was very good in his trilogy, and I don't think he's very good in this movie. But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter really because obviously it has the effect that it's going to have on people, and I still think that what the character does, it all works narratively. And yes, obviously, in my the thing that excited me the most of all was seeing Charlie Cox as Matt Murdock. Disappointed that he didn't get in on the action as Daredevil. Honestly, I don't care if it wouldn't have fit naturally. Don't care. Give me that fan service. I want to see it. Desperately want to see where he's going to show up. I wonder if maybe he's going to show up in Echo, maybe, but obviously I was when we saw spoilers for Hawkeye if you haven't seen it, but when we saw Vincent D'Onofrio as Kingpin in Hawkeye, I was like, yeah, Charlie Cox is going to be in it. So, loved seeing him in there. Would have loved to see more of him. But yeah, I mean, it is just like I said before. All the fan service is good. It's cool. Love it. But at the end of the day, the most important thing is that it was just a fantastic Spider-Man movie, and everything was just done in service of the story. Mostly everything. I thought the lizard was just kind of there. The lizard was probably that. That's the one villain where I'm like, yeah, he's just there because they need to have all the villains. But yeah. Oh my gosh, yeah. How could Willem Dafoe as Green Goblin, fantastic, and Alfred Molina as Doc Ock, fantastic. Obviously, those guys are the standouts. Those are the most iconic villains. Even though I have my problems with the Raimi movies, them as those characters, iconic. I absolutely adored them in their respective movies, and I adored them here. I mean, I love that they break Green Goblin's mask because we actually get to see Willem Dafoe's performance, and he has not skipped a beat. He's still amazing in this, and I never really, because I'm not much of a comic book reader, I never really made the connection, but is the Green Goblin basically Spider-Man's Joker? Because, I guess I never really made the connection, but he really is just like a maestro of chaos in here, and he just wants to bring Spider-Man into the dark side. And I guess now that I think about it, that is part of what he wanted in the first Spider-Man movie, right? Because he wanted him to join me in the dark side. But either way, it really did work in here, and seeing Peter overcome it was obviously very good and great. And yeah, Those two are awesome. Like Green Goblin and Spider-Man's fights, like I heard that their fights were going to be good, and yeah, they were really great. Just really brutal and like very tense to watch, which is awesome. Again, like I mentioned before, like I just appreciated that they really stepped up their game as far as the action. Like when you go back to Homecoming, there's really no memorable action in that movie. Like there just isn't. It's like I guess the boat scene, maybe. I I don't know. Like there no like the fact that there weren't sequences where Peter is fighting Vulture in the sky and they're swinging through the city. The fact that that's not there is a crime. I don't even know how else to put it. And it's like in Far From Home, he's either fighting like elemental CGI monsters or he's fighting a bunch of drones. I, and I know people love like the Mysterio scene where he's like where he's going through like all the illusions and stuff. And it's not that it's a bad scene, but in my opinion, it is like so CGI to the point that I can't help I can't help but feel like I'm watching a cutscene from Spider-Man Shattered Dimensions if you've ever played that game. But no, I do think he stepped up the game here. John Watts, I mean, like the Doctor Strange fight was awesome. The Spider-Man Green Goblin fights were awesome. The fight that he has with Doc Ock is awesome. Seeing the Spider-Men just work together and like fight together is awesome. I mean, yeah, they definitely stepped up the game here. I will say the final swing was a little weird. Like him, yeah, just him. I feel like the suit looked very CGI. I don't know why they chose to do it in like darkness. I mean, I get, like, it fits with the tone of the scene, but you could barely see it, and it looked like a video game. Maybe, I don't know. I'm gonna be watching the movie again on Saturday, so maybe it'll grow on me, and I'll just be able to like look at it closer. But yeah, it felt very just CGI to me. That being said, I mean, that did not take away from the impact of the scene, but that is one thing. Yeah, I mean, I think that covers all the bases. I mean, yeah, as far as like the post-credit scene go, I am very confused as far as just the nature of the Sony / MCU universe, like how that's all crossing over. Because in the Morbius trailer, like they reference Spider-Man as a murderer. We see Michael Keaton as the Vulture character, so that suggests, oh, this is in the MCU, right? And the Venom thing is in the MCU, but then we see Venom get transported to the MCU in this movie. But then, so okay, maybe Morbius is in the MCU, but Venom is in his own universe. But then Venom gets transported back out, and okay, so that still logically follows. But in the Morbius trailer, we see him pretend to be Venom to scare the guy. So, what is any of this? How does any of this come together? I don't know. I straight up do not know. Also, the other question I had, so does Peter, is it just that the Tom Holland Peter Parker has everybody forget who he is, or did Peter mess up everything for all the other Spider-Men as well? I actually don't know. I hope not, because that would be messed up, obviously. But yeah, that. Those are logic questions that I have, and I am very stupid, so maybe there are like easy answers to all of those questions, but I just don't know. Oh yeah, I guess I'll just say, so the one I didn't cry because one thing that you're hearing is that this movie is very emotional. Blah, blah, blah. This movie never made me cry. I almost cried when Andrew Garfield saved Mary Jane. And I kind of knew it was going to happen because everybody was speculating it. But again, Andrew Garfield is just so good in that role. It brought me right back to that amazing scene at the end of The Amazing Spider-Man 2. All of those emotions just came back. I almost cried. I didn't cry, but I teared up. There was one other moment as well. I think, honestly, not when Aunt May died. Like, it was a good scene. It was a good moment, but for whatever reason, I didn't cry. Might have been. It might have been when yeah, I think it was when Tom Holland realized he was gonna have Zendaya forget who he is. Yeah, I remember it was that moment. But yeah, no, overall, just to wrap things up here, I thought it was great. Like, I hope that this is the movie to unite the fandoms. And honestly, if anything, I am like more hyped than I was for this movie for the next installment in the Tom Holland Spider-Man universe. Like, is it gonna still be within the MCU? I mean he didn't get teleported out of the MCU, so presumably, but like, is it? But I like the idea that they're setting up that maybe Sony's making these movies and they're still in the MCU, but like maybe he's just not gonna interact with the MCU as much. And honestly, I'm excited about that. Like, I'm not even one of these people who's like annoyed as much about the MCU connections, but I don't know. I want to see more movies where Spider-Man is just kind of on his own and he doesn't have all the tech, and that's just a personal thing for me. Like, I am so hyped to see what they do. Hopefully they do like a college trilogy where he's in college. Um, I mean that's kind of what they're setting up, right? Yeah, no, that's basically it. I think. Let me know what you think in the comments down below, and I will see you in the next video.